will say, Ray and Jill, we're so excited that you're here today. I love Lead Graffiti's work. They both hold MFA degrees. They've been a collaborative design-related team for 40 years. As Cypher, Nichols and Design, their work has been included in exhibition and design annuals of the Art Directors Club of New York, the One Club for Art and Copy, University and College Designers Association, Graphis, and Print Regional, often in earlier days in collaboration with Ray's design students. And retiring from Cypher, Nichols and Design in 2000, and Ray from teaching in 2006, they started Lead Graffiti. It's a letterpress studio with the general focus of combining innovative handcrafted work with creative spontaneity. Their work has been recognized with exhibitions at the British Library in London, the Hamilton Wood Type and Printing Museum in Two Rivers, and AIGA Philadelphia, among others. Their work has been included in half a dozen books and is the collections of more than 50 major libraries worldwide. And we were so excited to show your work here. It was beautiful, it was stunning. Always so nice to see letterpress work in person. And I've always been enthralled by how you guys make your work. It's colorful, experimental, and I have my notebook ready. I'm excited to take notes and hear about what you have to share today. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Stephanie. That's a great introduction.
Thanks for everybody for coming. So we're kind of hoping we can do this talking about 40 minutes. It's a keynote presentation. It'll keep us kind of rolling, and we just have to try desperately to shut up sometimes because there are so many stories about so much. All of this work, the way we do it, because the experimentation and things, the story around it to us is almost more important than the work itself. So we're going to start the presentation now. I'm already hoarse. We've been talking for 30 seconds and I'm hoarse. So I'm going to share the screen and we'll do that. Share that and play. So does that look like that's doing what it's supposed to do?
Yep, we've just got a colors window up. Can you close that?
A colors window? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it says RGB sliders. Okay, maybe just try once more. We'll see what happens.
Is that
Close that up. Could you get to it?
Did it go away?
It did not. Is anybody on
We tested this earlier.
Oh, it did not do it when we tested this earlier.
The thing is that let me move y'all off of that. So now that'll get rid of it. The rectangles were over top of it. Now.
Perfect. It is ready to go. Thank you, guys.
Now the rectangles are just across the top of the screen, so anything that's up there we can't read anymore. Okay, so we're going to get this started here. So we'll have to do it and do this.
We're doing a little bit of housekeeping here. Here we go.
No, you're good.
First thing is to warn you, we're designers who print, not printers who design. So we're into design. We love craft and technical skills. We love typography and layout. But to us, the idea is the holy grail, the thing around which the print is built. So this presentation is what we think is our best ideas for the past 14 years.
So our Lead Graffiti goal is to print things via letterpress that no one has ever thought about doing before. We want to make them look like lead graffiti by making them not look like lead graffiti.
We don't sketch, and we try to tag on. Once you get some idea going, you try to keep it going.
So our mantra is surprising, original, inevitable.
And the hard one is that inevitable, where the solution needs to seem like it's the only logical solution. So literally, we think we've got really a good one of those to show, a very new piece for a wedding invitation, that once you've seen it, you're going to have a hard time not doing it. So we'll see how that goes. So we're building this around the itinerant printer's view of us. And I don't know, I would assume most of y'all know who the itinerant printer is. Chris Fritton, who came here and spent a week at Lead Graffiti, experimenting around and mostly being left alone by us. We didn't bother him during the day, and he explored and all sorts of stuff. But when he wrote the final piece, why is that doing that? He made a statement in his thing, in the article that he wrote about us. In a faceless corrugated steel warehouse in an industrial park just outside Newark, Delaware, lies one of the most experimental letterpress shops in America and doubtless the world, Lead Graffiti. And so that's what we're trying to build this around today, is we're trying sort of desperately to prove that point. So we're here to give it a try. We're not sure we can do it. We think it's pretty hard to do. This little thing keeps bouncing back. It's like really weird. I hit the key.
We're playing ping pong here.
I'm gonna do something else to try to make this. Whoops.
So we've got some stepping stones to how we got started. In 2001, we were taking some students to a study abroad program in London. And we wanted them to breathe the air of London, their design air. And we wanted the students to understand that type had weight. And we're not talking about physical weight, we're talking about the weight of words, poetry versus a newspaper article versus an advertisement.
We had no interest in letterpress when we went to London.
Stepping stone number 2, Nigel Kent, the typography director at Ogilvy, which is a big US ad agency in New York. In London, he said, when you get to London, talk to Alan Kitching.
And so when we were there, we set up a visit, and the following year we did the first of 3 workshops. And so this is the piece that we did there. And one of the things that was surprisingly interesting, the students are interested in computers. That's all they're really interested in doing. But of the 35 visits that we visited, that we went to, there, 85% of the students chose Alan as their favorite one of the 35. And it was really a surprise to get that back from the students, because we thought the workshop was actually kind of, I'm going to say, sort of Mickey Mouse. You just set this, each student set the one line of type that you can see. They picked a letter, and then Alan actually printed it. We weren't really involved even in the printing of the piece, but they loved this workshop. So that was a real surprise.
It's all about getting your hands on type.
And these are the pieces from the next 2 years that we did. And you can see they're pretty good size, 24 by 36.
And the thing to notice here is all the hand rolling on the type. We thought that's the way you did.
Yeah, we thought hand rolling was what one did with it. And we used that for years, still do, to hide the fact that we weren't very good at printing. I mean, you can really kind of fluff it up, but we've really grown to like the painterly quality, and we'll show a little of that here in a bit. Stepping stone 3 is, while we were in London, we heard about the St. Bride Printing Library. So Jill and I went over there to the guy, Nigel Roach, head librarian at the St. Bride Printing Library, to get him to show us 10 things from the collection a design student should see. He was going, well, I don't know what you want to see. And we went, well, first, we don't know what you have. And the second thing is, if I knew what you have, those aren't the ones I want to see. So show us something. And so what he did is he pulled out a box. The very first thing he showed us was the original tissues. Now, this is tissue paper, the way you know tissue paper, for Eric Gill's Drawings for Gill Sands, which is always my entire life been one of my favorite typefaces. It has a really good capital R. For some reason, I like that. And then Ian Mortimer's book called Ornamental Types. And if you've never seen that, you need to find a library that has it and see this book. It has 23 hand-carved alphabets from the foundry of Pouchet from the 1820s. This hand-carved, actually hand-engraved really, is better. This is what one of the sheets look like. And this is about the sheet, about the page. There are 23 of them. They're getting larger in size each time you you sort of turn a page of the portfolio. It's not bound. They're all individual specimen sheets. But I described this as seeing God at this point. I hated this kind of type up to the point I saw this. Hated it. We always avoided it when I was in school, undergraduate and graduate school. I was in design, because people would copy this stuff out of Dover books. And I just always thought it seemed cheap and uncreative and that sort of thing. But this was astounding. This type that had been printed for the first time in its lifetime from 1820s.
And the ink was so incredibly dense and black. It just sucked you in. It was like a hole in the universe.
Like nothing we have ever seen before or since. We took a group of us over to see Ian. That's Ian on the right, and he's explaining this book, which one there's a prize, and I can't remember the name, starts with an F right now, but it for the best book printed sort of letterpress, and he won that prize one year.
So stepping stone number 4, we're walking out of St. Bride, and Ray says, "We need to start a press," and I'm like, "Okay." And so after returning, we did an internet search, and it showed that there was an auction at Yale University that had just happened. And Ray's co-worker, Bill Deering, called the guy up and the guy said, "Bring a truck."
So we brought a truck, walked through a warehouse. We could take anything we wanted.
What is this? You need it. You'll find out what it is.
We got that a lot. Yeah, you'll find out what that is. Okay. So Raven Press started, and we were still doing these. I did these study abroads for 5 more years. And one of the visits that we did over in London is with a guy named Alan Fletcher. And he is like God in the graphic design world over there. He is historically probably the most important designer in England. The students, and students can be so weirdly stupid sometimes, we were sitting over there on a Friday afternoon. We left, and 2 students sneaked back to Alan's to ask him if, as a gift for the students to Bill, Jill, and I for doing this study abroad trip, if he would do a logo for us for Raven Press. So, hi, we need a press. Somebody, will you do it for us? Like, holy crap. So he did that young bird. And then the next year we went back and had him do the type. And if you go look at our YouTube site, our YouTube channel, you can see him doing that lettering. You will forever want to do your lettering like that after you do it. On the right, we used to visit the Type Museum over there when it was still going. And they actually engraved the matrix to make the raven as a logo. And just for the sake of it, I don't want to be just a name dropper, but that it is Amos Kennedy's finger there on the type there. See how I get started on doing these stupid stories, man. You just can't quit. So here's a shot of our studio. You can see there's sort of the printing part of our studio, a little part of a film that we did for to show college students. So we'll just
welcome to Lead Graffiti. We're going to start our studio tour with a spin around our main printing area. At the top, you'll see our amazing drying rack. We got the idea from Alan Kitching at the Royal College of Art in London.
Jill's favorite press is this 1969 Vandercook SB15. Every sheet is hand-fed and hand-cranked through the press. She loves the feel of the cylinder rolling over the lockup.
Our amazing Oswego rotary paper cutter glides through a stack of 30-inch wide paper. It was one of those gifts that said, if you can get it out of here, it's yours.
Next to this cutter is our flat files and storage for all our paper and envelopes. Another valuable piece of equipment is our light table with parallel bar thanks to eBay.
Up is Ray's favorite press, our automatic Vandercook Universal 3. Each sheet is hand-fed, but the printing is at the push of a button.
We've got most of the bells and whistles to help letterpress studio flow. Next to the presses, we keep our furniture and coins handy for locking up tight while preparing for printing.
We've got over 600 job cases filled with wood and metal type, most of which have never been digitized. Finding interesting typographic combinations is a lot of the fun in letterpress.
On a display wall, you will see some of our books and broadsides that we've made or collected over the years. The top 2 rows are highlights from our 5-year Tour de Lead Graffiti project, following each stage of the Tour de France.
You can see examples of our hand rolling, printing from objects like rubber bands and bicycle chains to achieve our imagery.
Below are examples of many contemporary letterpress shops that we try to support.
So like many letterpress studios, we started with cards, and the first ones we came up with were the box cards.
So we like, when you discover something, we like trying to find a way to use it especially well. And we really were intrigued by the fact that metallic inks were completely opaque. And so the notion of not just that it'll, you can print type on a black board, but that you can overprint something that's already printed in color. So we came up with these cards to use packaging, a way to recycle packaging and make these cards. Damn, gotta quit doing that. So this is 30 of the probably 60 of these kinds of cards that we've done over time. So we also do things like Valentine's cards that we'll do on chocolate packaging, chocolate cake and stuff like that. And we have a number of people who have a place in their pantry where they keep all their boxes. And all of a sudden there'll be a bag of boxes on the front step of the studio.
This is another card that we like playing with punctuation and typography. So this is what we call our not cards. And so we're playing with the contraction not in apostrophe T.
So the type is really fun. The text is really fun on these. We also at one time was talking about this sort of being experimental. We're starting printing on white paper, but we tried to print large flat areas. And most people who do letterpress don't want to print large flat areas. They're too hard to do, especially if you want to make it smooth. So we thought it would be different if we tried doing that and just leave a little bit of white left.
So these are cards that we did for kids who were too young to write. The designs are debossed into the paper, and all a kid has to do is take a crayon and color over it to make the image come up.
It's great. No press cleanup afterwards either. You can print these things like to card's content. Custom wedding invitations is something. We don't do a lot of wedding invitations. We have a pretty hardcore reputation for not wanting to do stuff like everybody else does. So if somebody wants to come and do a wedding invitation of flowers or leaves and things like, we don't want to do that. So normally we find a direction we'll work with, and then all the printing decisions are up to us. They usually don't actually know what it's going to look like after they've sort of proofread it.
So this is our most recent one that we just finished this past month, and it uses the handwriting skills of our 8-year-old granddaughter Zoe and the calligraphy skills of Satwinder Simi, who's the calligraphy to the stars in London, and a wonderful friend of ours.
A friend we met on our study abroad over there. So this is my son getting married here. And initially we had gotten Simi to do these. They're getting married October 10th, 2020. So that's XXXX. So typographically we went, okay, that's the idea. That came about 4 seconds after we found out the date to do it. So the plan initially was to make those X's wrap around that front cover. They would been a little bit bigger because they would have wrapped around and done it. And then Jill, Deanna has an adopted daughter. They're both being married for the first time, but Deanna has an adopted daughter, Zoe, who we call a granddaughter now, but getting ready to be legally a granddaughter. And Jill came up with this incredible idea to have Zoe give them away and to have it be from her. And we'll explain a little bit of that in a moment, but I just wanted to kind of do one close-up of this amazing sort of quality that letterpress has. Doing this 8-year-old's handwriting. It just makes it carved in stone. It just gives it a completely different quality than if you did this, an inkjet print. This wouldn't work as well. It is so nice. And then Jill would do these, oops, I'm sorry. I thought the next image was going to be something image there.
But we backed up and we took colored gel pens and just colored in the counters of all the letters to keep it colorful and playful and give some visual mass to the entire wedding invitation. We do that with Zoe a lot. I mean, we'll show you a bit of a journal that Jill has done in a bit. This is one of the earliest that we did that was a killer one. This couple was getting married in a brewery, and what they did for fun was they made beer together. So we were sitting talking to the two of them. So they told us they were getting married in a brewery, and we like making beer together. And so we're going. 3 minutes later, this entire thing was designed. We knew the typefaces they were going to use, that we were going to use. We were going to make these things into beer coasters. The entire invitation would be made out of beer coasters. And so when they were shipped, they were sent to people in a box. So it didn't have that smells like a wedding invitation quality. They were all mixed up and rotated. So when you opened the box, there was not a hint of what this was about. And you would just get this thing and go, what the hell is this for? And slowly, you'd kind of put two and two together and figure out that some things went together. Jill's tapping me on the leg here. That means stop the stories. I love you, but stop the stories. Okay. This one, our bouquet was peacock feathers. So we kind of went, how about we use a peacock feather? So that's a scan of a peacock feather we did. And we did some hand rolling on top of it. I'm cutting Jill off here. Okay, and this wedding invitation was for a couple who brought in the theme of a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we're kind of going, you sure you brought that theme? But we couldn't figure out what it had to do with getting married to start with. So they were such a wonderful, exciting, engaging couple. And so we went with it. And we came up with the idea of printing on the back of the wedding invitation for a change. And we actually went through the dictionary and the thesaurus and came up with 1,000 words that deal with love and marriage and being cuddly. And so that is exactly 1,000 words on the back. It's also a quite expensive piece of plate. And you might also notice on these wedding invitations, one of our favorite formats is to do this really oblong invitation that's sort of an accordion folded mini book, if you would, with often a perforated RSVP card on the end. We have an old-fashioned perforator that makes those nice round perforated holes. So instead of cards, we've only done a couple that are done as cards, this being one of them. This is 4 save the date cards. The groom, who was a designer, came to us about printing this invitation, but he wanted to design it. We said, okay, this was early on. And we said, when are you getting married? So he told us the date, and we thought, wow, that's actually pretty quick. He says, no, the next year. So it's going to be in 18 months. We're going, okay, we can't give this guy ideas because he'll just go somewhere else and have them done. So we came up with the idea. We wanted him to do 12 save the dates, mail out one a month. So May 6th, obviously, is the date they were getting married. So in 1889, the Eiffel Tower, kind of a phallic symbol, if you will, for marriage. 1915, Babe Ruth went all the way around the bases. He got past second base to third and on. On May 6th, the Rolling Stones wrote the opening guitar riff to Satisfaction. So these wonderful kind of sexual innuendos, let's say. Certificates. We think everybody should get a certificate for something that they've done. And so one of the ones that Ray's gotten that we're really proud of is from the Art Directors Club of New York. They call it their Grand Masters Award. And it's given to educators, well, you can read it there, whose teaching careers and mentoring have impacted generations of students. Ray's had some real superstar students, and the Art Directors Club of New York really wanted to recognize some of these students that were in New York.
Because the thing that's really interesting about it, we love showing this to people who print letterpress, and we'll hand it to them and say, feel that, you know, it's printed letterpress, and they'll always rub their fingers over the name, and they go, oh, that's nice. And we go, no, the frames. And they'll reach up and rub the frames, and all of a sudden that's letterpressed too. So we did it as 4 high contrast images, posterizations of this photograph, which is just ultimate quality. We did it in 4 runs, and it just didn't quite look right. So we took the 2 lightest colors and we printed a solid layer of yellow over top of them to get that pop of that gold, which I think is actually pretty amazing. This is a 9-run certificate, and they needed 5.
And it's not done in a metallic ink. It's
no metallic inks at all. There's no tricks actually to that. And that was one of the earliest seriously experimental pieces. We had no idea. But a piece of advice I always give students is volunteer to do work that's harder than you think you can do for somebody that you will be entirely embarrassed if you don't do it well. And it'll really drive you to achieve something that's pretty bizarre. So
this is one of our most favorite projects that we do every year. It's the diplomas for the 8th grade class at the Waldorf School of Philadelphia. The students come down and they hand set their names in metal type. They print the certificates, and they actually make paste paper that we then cover the folio that holds their diploma. And the whole idea came from the Nobel Peace Prize, the way it's formatted.
Our favorite project for a client for money ever. Nobody close. We do these things called afternoon diversions, which are things just to kill an afternoon most of the time. So,
this is one of the first ones we did. It's alphabetic chaos, and it's really just a wood type specimen sheet. We have a little short film here showing us doing some of the hand rolling.
One of the few things that we actually did a sketch. At the last there, that was Jill pointing out that we had left out the L. So it's kind of fun.
This next afternoon diversion is about Shakespeare. Was a project that was out there by the Bodleian Library, and we participated in it. We chose Shakespeare's 112th sonnet because it had the word impression in the first line. So the top of the print shows the way the sonnet first appeared in 1609, and the bottom of it is lead graffiti style, done in 2016, hand rolled in 2 colors.
So they had 154 printers around the world, each do a sonnet. Great idea.
And you can't be in letterpress if it's not all about Shakespeare. So here we were sort of merging a tribute, an homage to the Boston Marathon bombing with Shakespeare's birthday.
So one of the experimental, this is seriously experimental, is looking at Shakespeare. And you might notice the way the type works with this blind debossing. So down at the bottom there, this technique requires 3 runs through the press. Only the last one contacts the poster surface. Figure out how it's done.
pop quiz after this.
Yeah, pop quiz. This a friend was moving to Austin, Texas, and we figured he just had a little rock and roll time to kill, so we did this ha 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 from ZZ Top's LaGrange.
And here we had some guests in our studio who had an interest in the Grateful Dead's Ripples in Still Water. So these are the some of the lyrics from that song, and the lockup is on the left.
The husband was going down to the Rare Book School to take a class, and the wife wanted to get him some letterpress experience.
Calendars. If you're in letterpress, you're doing calendars. And this is one where we were doing an experiment, not only setting type in circles, but using our Intertype line caster to create the type.
This is just a picture. We have no other place to put equipment in here after the opening film, but so this is a portrait of our linotype. 72 magazines, 200 fonts, 100 things that need to be sorted, and 60 spots to oil.
And this calendar page on the left is for August. It's a double diagonal rainbow print.
So one rainbow is printed at 30 degrees, and then the paper is in fact rotated, and the second one is printed at 60 degrees. So that when you look at it, it's really difficult to figure out what's going on. So I always like saying, what's the least amount of work you can do to look like the most amount of work? So that's a good one.
And on the right is December holidays. There's so many holidays that occur in December. It's printed in 3 metallic inks. And the top of it, the December holidays, is actually dusted with a gold dust powder to give it a little extra bling.
We mentioned Zoe's journal a little earlier about the wedding invitation that we had done. So you can see sort of in the middle of the book, those things filling in the letters, filling in the counters of the letters.
So this is where the idea came from, to highlight the wedding invitation.
But we had to use that as a way to just pay homage to Miss Notorious Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So.
And there's Zoe with her own notorious attitude as well. Fine press books, that's what we've always wanted to do. And we like to tell stories. And the first book up here is Ray's Electric Fire from the Clouds.
So we do these things called ink pulls. Some people do them and call them wipes. But a lot of times when you have Vandercook presses, you want to help clean them, try to get the ink off the press when you're done rolling. And we started to kind of fall in love with these pieces. We started to try to control them. So we did these backgrounds, and we were doing a book about Ben Franklin's kite experiments with electricity. So storms, and we thought this was a pretty interesting way to do it. But to add this, now this is ultimate experimentalness here. You do these backgrounds, but you can't do them the same. You have not very much control over them. And so there are 10 spreads in the book. And the type for the book was cast on the line on our Intertype machine. And the type is positioned on each page to match what the wipe is doing or the ink pull is doing. They're not the same. So it's 40 books. That's what the eventual thing is. We're up to selling number 10 now. The Library of Congress just bought that, so we got to send that out this coming week. There are 10 each of 40. So there are 400 pages, and no pages have the same background or the same type. So this is a little film showing what that looks like, what the 5 spreads of one of the books. The book is 17 inches square. We loved finding this thunder to put behind this little page through. So to give you an idea, but each page, it'd be interesting, you can stack up 5 books look at the same copy on 5 different books and there's nothing about the pages that are the same?
This is a book, Thunder Road. It uses the lyrics from Bruce Springsteen's song of the same name. And it was a project that we were helping complete. It was done as a benefit for the Treehouse School in London. And you can see Springsteen's signature.
Springsteen signed it to Lead Graffiti.
On the left is a book we did as a catalog to an exhibition. The text is pretty much just the captions to the items in the exhibition. And what's important about this is up in the upper left corner of the page on the right, you can see "and coffee" that's handwritten. Every item that was in the exhibit, we went and photographed a small, what we call a nugget, something from that item, and highlighted that with a description. So it's sort of like a treasure hunt for people when they actually go and visit the collection and look for these items.
We thought it had a nice humanness that sort of made reference sort of to the collector, you know, the humanness of the person who's collecting. The book on the right is my favorite story about interacting with each of my parents. My father doing a thing in Rome and my mother going with her to her first rock concert ever at age 61. We took her to that. So just a wonderful book and a wonderful idea for anybody that's you know, would like to do family kind of genealogy-ish stuff. Wonderful.
This is a keepsake for a dinner that was held, and we wanted to make sure everybody that came to this exclusive little dinner had a little reminder of the event of the evening. And it's a swarm of bees, and we hand rolled the spine to look like stripes on a bee's body. And here's the first page inside. It's our little bees. And these are all words that deal with books and the people involved. And we substituted little dotted lines for the missing B's in the words. So we've got book and bestseller, Gutenberg, hardback, so on. And everybody at the dinner signed the book. All the books were passed around so that everybody could sign it and have a nice memento of the evening.
So 2 years later, they did another dinner for this. The Center for Book Arts in New York has an auction, and Mark Samuels Lasner auctions off a tour to his collection of books down here at the University of Delaware Library. And so we call this one X Marks the Spot. His name is Mark, so it's probably where that came from. Another little collaboration we do is called It's a Small World. It's really done in England, but there are a number of Americans, letterpress printers who do this. And so the idea is that you do a page, front and back of a page, and submit that page, and then it's a perfect bound into the book. So the first one we did, we had just learned that our Intertype, you could push this little lever and it would let you print let you cast multiple copies of a line. So we could set this one line, which takes a lot of effort to set that one line, but we could print it, you know, 45 times. So we did that. Then there had been, ever since I was an undergraduate, this haunting image of this poem, Il Pleut, a poem by Apollinaire Guillaume. And it's just a haunting image. Jill and I were talking this morning about it. I don't know why, but haunting. And I thought, well, it would be interesting to do it. And because it's a small world, let's do it in periods. Just let's make the small things. And so the periods are incredibly carefully aligned to match the letters. The page on the right is the back side of that page.
And this is probably the biggest project we ever did, our Tour de Lead Graffiti. And it's what we call endurance letterpress. And it's sort of a visual typographic journal of the events that happen in each of the 23 consecutive days of the Tour de France bicycle race. And at the time, we didn't have very many posters, and we wanted something to show when we had tour groups.
This is what the opening does in 2011. And one of the things is we knew we were going to do 23 consecutive days. They're bike races, so you're thinking people going from A to B. I don't know how you're going to make them different, but that was important to us. So you can see in this instance, the two typefaces, we would have two typefaces made in wood type. And this first year we did it in a Clarendon typeface in an outline and a solid. So these would fit right together. So you can see that all the large type and all the posters except the one on the lower right are in that typeface.
And the other thing to note here is the arrows. Every year that we did this project, we would have special arrows made that we would use as directional markers or symbols for writers, that kind of thing.
So here are two of the posters that are about crashes. The crash happened the first day, and in that middle one at the bottom, there were 10 crashes that day, mostly for no particular reason. So we said something about strange gravity that day, so we did it about strange gravity.
And another generality about the posters is, even though we're doing crashes, or in these two here that are highlighted in yellow, we're talking about the weather, there was rain, we always tried to represent it in a different way. We didn't want to always represent the same occurrence the same way. Nothing's identical.
So this particular day shows some other things. This was an American one on July 4th. So red, white, and blue seemed like a fairly logical possibility to do.
And in the little yellow box, you'll notice a small heart. That's our symbol for a moment of humanity. There would be something that would happen during some of the races that just sort of touched our heart. And so we would place a heart on the poster, more or less where it would have occurred during the time period of that
what side
race.
of the road or such as that. And then this one is right above it, that trident. There is a fan of the Tour de France. You can see him over on the left. That's Didi, a German, who is all the time traveling along, and you see him along the side of the road. And the two people that are with him did a poster with us in 2014 and got so excited about the Tour de France. The next year they went to the Tour de France to do it. And while they were there, they saw Didi. Unfortunately, the day that they did the poster, they didn't see Didi. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to show you all 115 posters, but we're not going to linger on them. But we just thought it would be fun just to crank through these.
On the right here, the large one is what we call our composite print, and it had every run that occurred on every one of the previous 23 posters that particular year. And so we would end every year with a series of composite prints.
So that particular poster has 126 runs. And you don't see that very often in letterpress.
So here's 2012. And again, you'll notice the typefaces change, but it's always the two typefaces that help give that year a sort of unity. And there's our composite at the end. And
they don't necessarily, they're not chosen to go together very well. They're really chosen to kind of work, how to get designs that work together. This particular poster down in the middle on the bottom was highlighted in a small article in Sports Illustrated magazine in their print copy, so that they did this. And it's really exciting that it went out to 3.25 million people. So that was a pretty nice ad for Lead Graffiti. You can see in the lower right, we're using bicycle parts and all, bicycle chains and all sorts of stuff.
And in the bottom row here, the one in the very middle where it says Froome Sky, those little round circles are actually checkers from Cracker Barrel. Those giant checkers that they have you out there to entertain you while you're waiting in line to get in to eat.
Every one of these has a story. We can tell you what happened in every one of these days. It's really amazing. So I guess Lauren is out there. Lauren Emirates is out there. She did that middle one on the bottom there. So we remember an amazing amount about the people who did these things. The upper left one here is the one the couple did that saw Didi a little earlier. one of the interesting elements from it that comes from, because we really haven't even much mentioned that, is the number of collaborators that do it. I would say in 23 days, we probably have collaborators on from 16 to 20 of those days. Somebody is coming to actually work with us. Most of the time, and almost all of the time, no interest in cycling. Tour de France does not interest them. And most of them don't have any experience in letterpress. But one of the things that does in fact happen, we were at the end of 2015, we were positive we were done with this project at this point, because this project is backbreaking. 23 straight days, basically 16 or 17 hours a day, no break, 23 consecutive days. And Ann Lemon was one of my favorite students ever. And she comes in and she wants to do a halftone. Now imagine somebody that walks into your studio and goes, ooh, let's do a halftone. So we drove down to Home Depot and bought all the different size dowels that they had, came back on the lead saw, cut them to 0.918 as best we could do. And we built a picture of Chris Froome holding his hands up as he crossed the finish line for what was then his 5th tour win.
Yeah, doing his best Rocky imitation there.
Yep.
So now we've got 115 Tour de Lead Graffiti posters to show when people come to the shop. And we all, from that exhibit, we also got exhibits at the British Library, Hamilton Wood Type Museum, the Delaware College of Art and Design had our retrospective last December, and an article in Sports Illustrated. So there you have it.
And 4 of the 5 composites had more than 100 runs to them. And the last one had 92. We spent 40 more hours doing it, but it had 20 less runs.
So very quickly going through our workshops, one of our favorite ones is the Meander book workshop, where people do a full bore letterpress workshop in one day. Everything from hand setting type, printing on 2 different presses, sitting at our Intertype and casting their name to go in the colophon. And at the end of the day, they make 3 copies of the book to take home with them.
We really think this is an experimental workshop that is really interesting. We're getting ready to try it over Zoom. We're going to do it with a college up in Pennsylvania. So anyone interested, it costs $100. You need 12 people to do it. So if anybody's interested, get in touch with us.
This is what the book looks like, opened up and pulled together. And on the right-hand side, you can see one of the little small lockups.
This was done by Tyler School of Art.
Here's what the studio looks like with 14 people running around looking for type. And here's the lockup close up, and on the right is the printed version of it.
So that's a 4x5 inch.
We really encourage people to not set type the normal way. We're looking for diagonals, curves, crazy baseline.
Need a W, use an M. Need a 3, use a E, that kind of thing.
And here's the lockup in the bed of our Universal 3, getting ready to be printed. And we've done over 65 of these workshops.
In the studio.
And here you can see the lockup beside the final print done in 2 colors.
So this is the same one we showed you opened out onto the table a while ago.
And from that workshop, I will do a fine press book that incorporates the same format but adds a little more bells and whistles. Inside the valley of the accordion folded book, I've inserted a Japanese Sakeshu paper that has a poem written on it by my friend Deborah Arnold. And the body of the book is made of a digital print of a mariner's map of the Chesapeake Bay, which is what the poem is about.
The other creative workshop that we do, so we have 2 kinds of workshops. These 2 we call creative. They're about making interesting work, and they're about not doing work. So we do all the cleanup, we do all the redistributing of the type and everything like that. You're only involved in the actual printing. And so normally the Verkman workshop is 3 hours working time, usually 4 hours. We spend an hour doing studio tour and stuff. if you don't know what Verkman is, it's letterpress upside down. We're going to show you a little bit of a film here in a second. A student would normally produce 4 to 8 prints in the 3 hours. There's no lockup required at all, and there's no cleanup. Jill and I are doing all the work. So here's a little film.
Maybe.
Ooh, and finally we get the infamous rainbow.
This technique produces only individual prints, so it doesn't require the locking up effort, which makes it a wonderful experience for kids and anyone who's just getting started in letterpress. First, the paper is laid in the bed of the press.
So in this instance, on iron hand
carefully
press.
positioned, ink side down on top of the sheet.
Closing the bed of the press is done platen. Pulling the handle, Jill forces the platen press the letter onto the paper. Here we zoom in on the type being lifted to create the print, being careful to avoid smearing the ink.
Love that. And so then just ink up another letter, add it to it, twist it around. It's rather nice. You can really see fairly carefully how things fit together. And with a collection like you have at Hamilton Wood, oh my God, this would, you need presses as big as rooms. That's what you need there. This shows a student at Moore College of Art setting it up to do, in this instance, 5 pieces at the same time.
These are some pieces done by other people during this workshop. This particular page shows pieces that just use one piece of type. On the left, it's just a single number 8, but printed twice. And on the right, it's that little wooden piece with the 3 bars on it, just printed over and over again and re-inked between impressions.
We think that would make really beautiful fabric. So we've been thinking about that, but oh well. These all use repetitive images, HA over the side, all different colors, and just printed over top of it. The center, the A in those blocks, things, it's a calendar, a square around a calendar number, but it's only inked around the border, not the number on the calendar. And then the 4 was printed once and then just reprinted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more times without re-inking.
And here's some more complicated prints, just overlaying parts of letters. You don't really have to ink the whole letter. And on the right, it's a hand, which took probably about 30, 45 minutes to do, and has about, 30 or so runs on it to get all of those different impressions.
So this shows 2 people printing on the iron hand press. When we do this particular workshop and we have kids, the kids love this iron hand press. We've done this workshop at the Winter Museum and Library, which is a wonderful place over in Wilmington, with 125, we've done this twice, 125 kids between 3 and 10. Now think about that for a workshop. And we've done that twice with them. An amazing experience to do that. We can't show it because it shows all these kids. It's really a shame. We forgot to take pictures with kids out without their faces. Should get them away. You see, today you could coronavirus mask. They get away with it. So we have just wanted to point out this other piece of equipment here, this Albion that we have. We have in 1928, and just for the sake of it, we haven't seen another original iron hand press that was built later than this, 1928. This was bought by the Laboratory Press from Carnegie Institute of Technology in London, built by Harrell & Sons, shipped over to what is now Carnegie Mellon University. And we also have a Washington number 5. And here's some people from a workshop we did. They were pretty good. It was a pretty fun place to work, to do it. I think we saw Tony on here a while ago with his. I couldn't find his F. I was going to do that up big. I don't know if there's anybody else that might have been there with that workshop. God, what fun that was to have that access to all that wood type. So based on this experimental thing, we kind of rest our case. So, you know, let the defense speak, or is the prosecuting attorney? Somebody, whoever the other side is, they get to argue now.
The judge.
So I'm going to stop the share.
That was amazing. That was so amazing.
I don't know. Oh, there I did. Maybe I did.
Uh-oh. Are we gone?
Nope, you're here. You're spotlighted.
All right. Whew. So, oh my God, we got through that. We were only 20 minutes longer than we meant to be. I'm telling you,
It was shorter when we practiced it.
it was easy to do this. 38 minutes, no problem.
It always is, right? You get excited, you tell stories, you remember that thing you wanted to say.
I could be 10 slides into still telling stories. So
I know. I think that's the great thing about letterpress printers is we learn from the printing, but we also learn from all the stories.
You never know where ideas come from.
No. We had a really good question while you guys were going through, and I'm curious about this as well. You know, you said you didn't know letterpress. So how did you learn? Like, who or what was your most influential learning source? Well, you talked really great about like where you got stuff, but how did you learn the process?
well, surely Alan Kitching was an experience. I mean, he's one of the incredible letterpress printers in the world. He's from England, and he did it, but his work is so not what we normally see here in the United States. It's just not like that. He has this astounding collection of wood type. He might have more than y'all have. Seriously.
Oh, no, I know. I haven't, no, I know. I've heard.
Of it. Bond, he was getting it back in the day.
Yes.
But that's the place. Honestly, Mike Kaler helped us. He teaches down at Washington College. He helped us. And then just stumbling off into it, you know.
Yeah, let's see what this does.
Just, you know, just keep adding to it and adding to it. But, you know, read. You know,
Read, just pull out a book. I mean, that's how you learn, right?
Go to the Library of Congress or something and just, you know, walk up to somebody in there and they go, can I help you? And I go, yeah, I need a book. And they go, well, what book? And I go, well, we need to look and see what somebody did with letterpress that you think is cool. And a particular person that we got was a guy named Campbell, is a British guy. And God, we brought this stuff out and it's just not, I mean, it's not retro posters or anything like that. You can see that we're not into doing retro posters, or, you know, anytime we can get type out of alignment, we're better off for it. And you just see a couple of those and boy, those just locked in our heads. This is the way it needs to be done. And a lot of it, quite honestly, without being weird about this, a lot of our stuff, you don't have to necessarily print it very well because there's not a lot to compare it to, you know, within a print. I'm not talking about between printers, but, you know, it's kind of chaotic about what, you know, what's going on. But
we got started so late in our lives in doing letterpress. I don't think we, right off the bat, we recognized we were never going to be at Ian Mortimer's level of printing. So we're trying to do the best we can with the skills and the materials that we have ourselves. I mean, some people have some fantastic type collections, and ours is sort of cobbled together, stuff on eBay, stuff from friends, stuff from flea markets. If you're taking the press here, take this box of junk, and that's what we're doing.
And I think just banging along. I mean, quite honestly, just like idiots, you know, just keep trying it. And like I made that mention at the Art Directors Club, trying to do it. I mean, for a while we printed, for 4 years, we printed all the cards for the Metropolitan Opera. They're not terribly experimental, so we didn't show those. But for the Metropolitan Opera, you don't want to screw up a job for the Metropolitan Opera. You know, you're trying to do them well, you know, and there were a lot of them. You got a lot of practice.
what's that Amos Kennedy saying? Proceed and be bold.
Yeah,
That's just just jump in with both feet. And
I used to
do your
tell my
best.
students all the time, if you can't be good, look confident. You know, so, you
That's
know,
very good advice.
I mean, you know, yeah, we can do this. You know, you know, and then go back and go, how the hell are we going to do this? So,
It's true. Noreen wants to know why the use of the word graffiti in your name.
we wanted to be Led Zeppelin, Lead, but we figured out that everything was going to go to Led Zeppelin. You know, I mean, it just
True.
we're going to fight with Jimmy Page about this thing. And the other one we wanted was the Press of Sighs, S-I-G-H-S, because we'd been to Venice and they had the Bridge of Sighs. We always loved that, just poetic. So the Bridge of Sighs, the Press of Sighs sounded interesting. And then we came up with the lead graffiti. The hand rolling is actually what provoked it. The idea of kind of airbrushing on the wall and rolling, you know, it's kind of they're sort of similar. And then do the lead. And boy, once we played with it a little bit, we were locked into it. It's one of those inevitable. We just could not figure out that there was possibly anything that sort of matched the kind of work that we did for what that is. And actually, there's a whole wonderful story about how that graffiti with that Spencerian script happened. I mean, if you go on our blog, I think that's all written up about it, but it's taken from a British banknote from 1885. Just really great story.
And I did share your website, Instagram, and YouTube. I've shared it when you mentioned it, but it's also over in the chat for if anybody wants it as well, to read those blogs, because it's easy to get lost on your website in all of the good stories you share on there and the visual imagery you share on your Instagram. So I recommend people go and look at those. Since you could take a little bit of a break. Thank you so much, you guys. I was taking notes and thinking, and except I do want to ask one question before we move along, because I really want to know, you said there'd be a pop quiz. You said it ran through 3 times. I'm like, I got distracted a little bit trying to think it through. You said it ran through 3 times, but only actually contacted type to paper once. Is that true? Can you tell that mystery before we? Okay.
Type to the poster once.
Yep.
So you want the explanation?
I do. I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm
they
intrigued.
Can leave. If you don't want the explanation, get off now.
We got more people excited. So yes, please tell us.
We took a piece of paper.
A hard surface.
A hard surface paper. The ink will not sink into it. We printed it very lightly with very heavy ink.
Yeah, really juicy. Had a lot of ink on the type.
You keep going. Can I get back to it?
Okay. And so we had some type, the type that said Shakespeare, locked up in the press.
And it says Shakespeare. We wanted to break that. We broke it in the wrong place for Shakespeare. So we shakes. We wanted to have it, that jiggly stuff. Yeah. So that's deliberate.
And so we heavily inked it, hand rolled in the red and the black ink, and printed it on this hard surface paper. And
barely rolled it. So you know how when you're rolling, it has the kind of that orange peel texture to it. We're just getting the top of that texture on it.
I just shared it because I took a screen grab, if that helps.
Okay, great.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that type, if you can imagine, it's completely the solid type. But you can see how that orange peel is just picking up the highlights, the high spots in it sometimes. So that's on a piece of paper. Now, move the wood type. And you can see that the wood type's not been moved evenly. Shakes has been moved a little bit more than Peer. They've been moved a little bit more. The wood type is cleaned. Okay, you're starting to clean wood type.
Yep.
You put the piece of paper back in the press that you printed, and you roll it over the wood type so that you use that to ink the wood type. So it doesn't ink correctly, it's off center.
Yep.
Because the type is moved.
You with us so far?
I am. This is great.
And then you print the poster.
Yeah, put
Love
your
it.
Sheet of poster paper in and print it.
That's
so
beautiful.
You deposit it and print it at the same time.
With that lovely inking technique. That's great. I thank you. Mystery solved. And now all I want to do is go play out a press.
Play.
It is all about play. You guys have inspired me. I know you've inspired others. I want to say thank you so much for coming. I want to thank everyone else who joined us today.